Hi guys, it's Joy. It is literally 1 in the morning where I am at. As soon as Discovery Plus came online, I made sure to get my 7-day free trial subscription so I could watch the Chris Hansen Onision documentary. Y'all, it did not disappoint. Not only did it, I'm surprised. I was a little bit skeptical, as some of you know, because there has been some controversy with Chris Hansen being on the YouTube platform. Honestly, I'm blown away. And you're going to have to forgive me. I'm actually a little bit nervous filming this video because it struck such an emotional chord in me, and I didn't expect it. Before I get into that, the first thing I'll say is, I learned a few things I didn't know. So I kind of knew that Greg had dabbled with different things online before. And some spoiler alerts, by the way. So if you haven't seen this, maybe you want to watch this first. I'll try not to give too much away, but, for the most part, people who are watching this, especially in the YouTube community, we know the story. We know the story of what's happened with Greg. I'll just fill you in on some things I thought were really interesting that I learned. I didn't realize he had his own websites where he was doing video content. I remember MrOdd.com. I remember he had talked about Saga, which was a cult that he tried to do. This was really good. I have to really give big props to Chris Hansen for putting this together. And I am really shaken, which I'll explain in a minute, but I am also really relieved. I think something in my soul feels relieved that from this story of Onision, a story that I inadvertently but kind of became a part of, not necessarily meaning to, but as you guys know, I was a voice back in 2017 that heavily covered this before it became the big topic it is now, and I got very scrutinized for it. And I feel like I can kind of breathe a sigh of relief because I'm really glad that this is getting some mainstream coverage. I'm very, very glad. First of all, let me say for Discovery Plus, this was a brilliant marketing move to take this on because this is going to really widen their audience. Just from, because you guys know I do marketing and advertising. And so just from that standpoint, I was like, for you guys to get immediate viewers and immediate people signing up, you're going to get, I don't think they realize what a huge YouTube community has been. We've been waiting for so long for something to be done as a result of Onision. So good job, Discovery Plus. And this was brilliantly executed by Chris to put himself on YouTube and then take these stories and sell it. Now, I know there's still some controversy when it comes to the girls that were involved and not wanting to be involved, and I understand that. I do respect that, but wow. This blew me away. First of all, this was the first time we saw Onision's dad speak up, and he showed paperwork, I hope it's real, that Onision, the things that they said that happened in regards to, so Onision always says one of his famous stories about his dad, the last time he really interacted with him, was that his dad had assaulted him, so he assaulted him back, defending himself, and he had to go to a juvenile detention center. And his father actually showed paperwork saying that that may not be the case. I don't know 100% if it's real. That's the hard thing, as I've said, let's be really careful when it comes to Greg's father, because Greg's father, Greg will lie. Greg will manipulate. Remember, he said that he showed his papers of that he was honorably discharged or, discharged with honor, I guess. And that paperwork was fake. And then later said, well, yeah, it's fake, even though he said it was real before. The most honest YouTuber also does videos saying I'm fake as the F word, which I've covered that. So, but sometimes he'll say off the wall things and they end up being true. So it's really hard to ever know what's really going on with him. I would say let's keep really open to that. I also know what it's like to come from a situation where it's a bad home life and there is no paper trail. A lot of times people who do bad things like that, they know how to cover for themselves. And when you're a child, you don't know how to protect yourself. So I take it with a grain of salt, but several things that his father said to the Onision story, it fits and it makes sense, but I'm not here to say whether or not that's right or wrong because I don't know and I don't want to judge too much on that level, right? But it was very, very interesting. They focused on Shiloh. I know there's been a lot of controversy around Shiloh, but I can say, regardless of whatever controversy there is, girl, just a shout out to her. She's not going to watch this. She's too busy, but I'm so proud of you. I don't know you. Is that weird to say I'm proud of somebody I don't know? I don't know you, and I am so proud of you. I remember seeing all of this happen in 2012. I think I was watching it later. And this is where I'm going to open up a little bit, guys. You guys, if you've watched me, you've heard me talk about the reason I started talking. Oh my gosh, I'm getting upset. So forgive me. I'm going to try to stay calm. If you start seeing me shake a little bit, it's a trauma response. I'm just letting you be aware. So, and I'm getting nervous talking about it. So my story is a little bit parallel with Shiloh's because right around the time she got with Greg, I was in a very, very bad, very abusive relationship. I have alluded to it, and I don't really want to talk too much about this specific person, but there are so many parallels between what she went through and what I went through. And what's hard for me is the first time I really successfully broke away from him, I remember being at work, and it was like a Friday, it was a down day, and there wasn't much to do. And Onision was a guy, I had known of him since I think 2009 on YouTube. I remember watching him. I found him through The Amazing Atheist. They would debate back and forth about vegetarianism. And I just thought he was a weird guy that made me uncomfortable. He'd always do these weird dramatic videos and emo stuff, and then he would do this, and he would pan up to the camera from all these weird angles talking about vegetarianism. And there was something about him that always made me very uncomfortable, but also intrigued me. And I didn't understand. I was like, why do I feel drawn to this person, but something's really off, right? And that happens. That can happen with people. And so I wasn't a fan. I just thought he was this odd dude. And I was like, okay. And then what I would do is probably once every 6 months or once a year, I would go, I wonder what this dude is doing. And so I had one of those moments where I looked him up and I saw what was happening with Shiloh, and I saw a lot of the parallels in my situation. And one of the big reason I started to speak up about Onision was because it was a 10-year journey for me to try to really fully get away from my ex that did all of this. And I saw how much damage he did to me. And that's why I started speaking about Onision, because I saw so many parallels. And one of the reasons back then during my Onision coverage I never talked about Shiloh was I knew how hard she tried to distance herself from him, and that she didn't want to be in the public eye when it came to him. And I didn't blame her, and I wanted to respect that about her. I always had this feeling, had I put myself on YouTube, during the time I was with this guy, I could have easily had a similar story. And what's shaking me, and I didn't expect this, was Shiloh opens up about that infamous video where she has a breakdown, and Greg films it, because Greg will exploit anything he can for any attention, as we know. And he filmed her, and she was acting like a child and said, I want to make a rainbow, and then started shaking and didn't know where she was. And this is where I'm having a hard time. I watched that, and I watched her talk about it, and it just hit me like a punch in the chest. I went through something similar when I was with my ex, and it took me a few years to even remember it. And I know Shiloh has gotten a lot of flack about that, saying she was faking it. Greg even said later she was faking it. Let me tell you what happened if you haven't seen it. And I don't really want to show it on this channel because it's so gut-wrenching. But she was going into a childlike state, said, I want to make a rainbow, started shaking, then started freaking out and screaming, not knowing where she was, not knowing who he was, lost her memory. And she stayed like this for a few days, and Greg took it upon himself to exploit it and get as much attention as he could. He filmed it. He put several videos up about it. He did videos saying, I'm not going to take her to the doctor. She doesn't want me to. And I don't think doctors are going to help her. She needs me. He would even put up polls. Should I take her to the doctor or not? It was the most vile thing I've ever seen. And she was what, 17? 17, right? 18? Away from her family in a different country. I've also been in a situation where I was away from, well, my family's not good, so that's a different story, but I didn't have family in a different country with somebody who wasn't the best of people. It's just really hard. it's really hard to see the parallels of what I went through versus what she's gone through. And here's where I'm going to open up about myself. I don't know how many times it happened. There are 3 times I can recall. The problem is I recalled it days and weeks later. When I was with my ex, it was bad. It was controlling. It was abusive physically, mentally, emotionally. I had just been through a traumatic experience going into the situation, so it was 10 times worse. This was a person that was very unstable. This was a person that would choke me, that would throw me, that would do awful things to me. And not only that, this was a person that when we had an argument, and it was all the classic stuff. I was slowly controlled. Everything about myself was taken away. I wasn't allowed to have a place to put my things. I wasn't allowed to leave without permission. We had to go everywhere together. He was constantly angry at me. I would be punished if I did something wrong by being thrown out of the house. So all my things would be loaded up in Walmart sacks and put on the street for everybody in our apartment to see. Or I'd be kicked out for several hours, sometimes all night, depending on his mood. And if I tried to stand up for myself many times, he would, and I'm not allowed to talk about this. He told me I was never allowed to talk about this. He had something called the God Army. Why did I stay with this guy so long? He had guns. He would get out guns. He would put on these homemade army fatigues. You know what? I'm having a trauma response talking about it because I was so conditioned to never speak about this. And he would hold guns up to me. I remember, I think it was about the 1st or 2nd month we were together. Something happened. It wasn't just me. He had an issue at work. He had a phone call that really upset him and he had to go to work or do something with work. And so right in front of me, because I remember telling him I was very scared of guns. That was a big fear of mine at the time. And he said, you said you want to get over your fear of guns. Here's your chance. He got up, was screaming about these people, put on his army fatigues. He started getting all his guns out, loading his guns, getting the bullets out, and screaming, you better pray I don't spray these people with bullets. And I was on the floor and I was in fetal position, like prayer position, and just crying and begging him, please don't do anything. And I didn't know what to do because from my upbringing, I was conditioned to believe that I had to protect the people that were hurting me. And I watched him get in his vehicle and leave to go to work. I was 26. I was just coming off of a very traumatic situation, which, I was ripe for being a victim by this person, and I didn't know what to do. And he was gone for about 2 or 3 hours. So I just laid on the floor and prayed because I didn't know what was going to happen. He came back in different clothing, so I think he changed in the car, and he tried to tell me that everything that happened wasn't real, that was a simulation to get me over my fear of guns. But he also admitted he was angry at his work and wanted to express his anger. I think that was one of those moments that broke me, and he told me I was not allowed to talk about it. I was not allowed to ever talk about it. He had already had an issue with the guns and the police in one manner. I don't remember exactly what it was. That's not all, though. There was a time where he was trying to kick me out, and I finally said, I'm not leaving. I stood up for myself. I was paying the bills. In fact, he got to the point he didn't work. From his perspective, he was a very spiritual person, and God called him not to work because it was too important for him to be a DJ for God not to work. I am not joking. And if I needed to, I could pull up evidence of this stuff. I don't think I've ever gone into this much detail to talk to you guys about this. This is all true. This all happened. I'm getting choked up. It's really hard to talk about. I'm a very spiritual person, but at that point I was in a real spiritual crisis with myself, with kind of being a new ager versus kind of going more into logic. And he really used that against me. And really, he didn't just tell me, you'll have no home, you'll be kicked out, nobody wants you. And I had chronic illness issues, didn't fully understand it then. So my home was constantly, my stability was constantly threatened. I had to live solely for him. And so I learned to survive it. I had to, and he would always say this, he would always say, you have to kill yourself off. Kill off everything in you. And you have to figure out what God wants from you. I can understand the spiritual aspect of what he was saying, but what he was actually wanting me to do, he wanted to have complete control over me. So I lived for all of his narcissistic outbursts and whims. And it wasn't just at me. He would get furious all the time at all kinds of things, but it would be taken out on me. He would leave me in public places to fend for myself, knowing I had no way home. And this was before like Uber was a thing and taxis didn't really come out in the Midwest to where I was. He put me in the most dangerous of situations. And one time I stood up for myself. He started to pack my things and I said, I'm not leaving. He said, and he would always say, I'm going to call the police. And finally I said, do it. Call him. He said, I'm going to call him. I'm going to traumatize you and you're going to see how wrong you are. And I said, call him, because I was paying the bills. I was working a very, very difficult, high demand serving job. One of the most difficult jobs I've ever had. He called the police, but here's what he did. He armed himself before he called the police. The police came in. Oh, this is hard to talk about. They asked him if he had a weapon on him. And they came in very nice. And he backed away with his hands up and didn't want to answer the question. And because he didn't want to answer the question, they had to search him. He refused search. They threw him on the ground and started to manhandle him. I don't remember much of it because at this point I feel like my memory kind of blanked out. I remember getting up and yelling, you're hurting him. And one officer was yelling to get back, but the other one, I was on his leather couch and sorry. There was an officer that was, this is really hard to talk about. I don't know that I've ever actually talked about this with anybody. I need lots of counseling probably. There was an officer that was really nice and he said, I know something's going on. I can just see it. You're in a bad situation. Talk to me. What's going on? And I was trained to protect the people that hurt me. And I didn't say anything. I couldn't. I just laid there and cried. When the officers finally left, and it took a while, it was a big situation because I think a lot of people at our apartment complexes and neighbors, they knew what was going on. And there were people like looking and waiting and kind of outside, and he threw me out. So then in the middle of all that, I got thrown out and I had to walk out in front of everybody and people asked me if I was okay and I couldn't talk. And he let me know that that was my punishment for disobeying orders. Those are just a handful of stories that I have. I'm telling you guys this to help you understand why it shook me, because I know Shiloh has gotten so much crap. I'm trying to hold it together, guys. I'm really sorry for that video and that she was faking it. I ended up having some similar reactions and didn't realize it until the last one happened. And it was towards the end of our situation when I was able to finally break out. I would wake up in bed. Typically, and it was weird because I would fall asleep and I have some memory of it and I think it would happen. I gotta calm down. I'm starting to feel sick because I'm stressing out my body. This is hard. I think it would happen typically within the hour of me falling asleep. I would wake up. I didn't know where I was. I didn't know who I was. I didn't know who he was, and I would wake up screaming. And I remember about 2 or 3 times the beginning of that happening. But for some reason, it's weird. I remember one of those instances almost fully, and it was in the last, like it was the week, but like that week that I broke out. I think maybe this was my mind's way of pushing me to get out. Oh, this is hard to talk about. I remember his brother was there. He had a family member there that night. And they were playing, I was in bed and they were playing games. And I was trying to sleep because, of course, I had to work the next day and he got to stay up and do whatever he wanted. This guy, y'all, he ended up getting us $1,300 of car payments. He went and bought a huge van to perform in, which he never did, and a newish sports car. We're talking $25,000 and $35,000 vehicles. He bought these things. And then because God called him to do it and then expected me to pay for it all. And then everything else on my serving salary. Hearing so many parallels. Hearing Shiloh say that she made all those videos and didn't see a dime of it. I made money and I wasn't allowed to keep my money. He got to control all the money. When he would kick me out, even though I had to work full time, I would have to sleep outside sometimes because there was no money for a hotel and he wasn't going to give me that money or he had spent it all. And I had no family to go back to. I had nobody that cared about me. I still don't. My family is a very difficult subject. But anyway, so the week that I broke away from him, within that week, I remember waking up screaming, not knowing where I was. He came in the room. I remember him being very kind and gentle with me. And I was terrified of him because I didn't know who he was. And he tried to help calm me down and get me to bed. The thing that scared me was, and this is what's hitting me tonight, and watching Shiloh's story made it hit tonight. I remember he acted like this was very common. And this was just par for the course and part of the daily routine. How long had that been happening to me? And he never told me. Why did he never say a word about this? I want you guys to know I begged for help. I begged for therapy. I wasn't allowed. I was not allowed therapy. I was not allowed to talk about anything he did. I was not allowed to talk about the guns. I was not allowed to talk about our relationship because it was between me, him, and God. He did not allow me to get help. He wasn't going to spend the money on it. And God said no. Now I realize he was covering his tracks. And I started getting a very bad reaction when I heard Shiloh talking about the fact that her episode, now she's analyzed it and talked to doctors about it, and it was a traumatic response, which is exactly what was happening with me. It was a PTSD response. And he convinced me that I was crazy and would convince everybody around me that I was the crazy one when really I was traumatized and terrified. When's he going to get out a gun and hurt me and hurt other people? And I'm not allowed to say anything. And I just really feel for Shiloh. I really feel for her. And I think she's really brave for coming forward and talking about her story. I have a couple regrets in my situation. It took me many years to fully get rid of him. And I should have gone to the police. I tried, but I was so conditioned by my family and by him to protect people that hurt me, right? I wasn't strong enough. That's why I want to say to you guys, and this is why I talk a lot about this on this channel. When I was younger, I had this ideal that when you hit your mid-20s or your 30s, you got everything figured out. And if you didn't, you're stupid. You know, what the dumb things you think when you're young and you're a teenager and don't know anything, right? And, sorry, I'm trying to keep calm because just I start getting flooded with things and then my memory starts kind of sparking in and out. Fun little trauma things that can happen. I don't know what I was saying. Sometimes that happens when I talk about this topic. Certain things will just go blank. I think as bad as it was, I think my memory has really blocked a lot of stuff out from that situation. And I'm trying to recall it and it'll have to get there and it'll go away. I think it was about the things I wish I did differently, right? I should have gone to the police. But what was I going to do? On some level, I was chronically ill with no help, nobody to believe me, didn't have any family. My family wanted the worst for me. It was a bad situation all around. I will say though, to their credit, short credit, what did get me out of that situation, that week, and I don't know why. I don't know why it was that week. I remember having a dream. I remember I went to bed and we'd been arguing. And once again, he said, I'm not going to allow you to take the car to go to work. Sometimes my punishment was I'd have to ride my bike 10, 15, 20 miles, depending on how far my job was, to work and back. It was a punishment to not use the vehicles that I was paying for. This job, though, there was no way I could ride my bike to get there. And we're talking, 2010, 2012. There's no way to get a taxi really out to me that quickly. Uber didn't go where we were. And I wasn't allowed, and I didn't have the money for it because I wasn't allowed to have money. So we were arguing. Who knows? I'm sure something I did upset him. He was always upset at me for something. And he told me I couldn't take the car to work. And I'm like, well, then I can't go to work. He's like, then you're not going to work. And if we go homeless, I don't mind living out of my van, but you're not living with me. So you figure it out. It was a constant threat of my stability and my survival at all times. And I remember I went in our room, his room. Nothing was ever mine in there. And I said, I need to go and rest and try to figure this out. So I put on The Office, and this little tiny TV, turned it on, and he yelled at me, turn the TV off. And I said, no. And he came in and he turned the TV off, and he said, you are not allowed to use the television. You are being punished. I said, what do you mean I'm not allowed to use the television? But, I already knew what that was. We'd had this conversation before. Because like I said, he always won the fights because he could do something physical to me, or he could kick me out. So he could always win, and he knew that. He would always resort back to that if I pushed him too much or I challenged him too much. So what happened was that he left again, and I told myself, screw him, no, and I turned the TV on. He came in, and he took the DVD player and the TV. He took these devices out of the room completely and said, they're mine, you're not allowed to use them. I said, it's my electricity because I pay for it. He said, I don't care. That was one of the least offenses he did to me, and for some reason, there was something about that, and I snapped. And I just told myself, I'm done. That night, I had a very interesting dream, and I am so grateful to whatever positive powers that be, or maybe it was just my subconscious, gave me this dream that I worked really hard to build a restaurant and a home for us and a thriving business. And that in the dream, he was there and he was acting irresponsible and he was acting dangerous and not safe to the customers. And then I remember at one point, I saw him in the dream physically doing things to a friend of mine, at the time, one of my closest friends, against her will. I saw him doing it in the restaurant in a phone booth to her, and it shook me. And something in the dream said, get out. You don't know what this is. Get out, get out, get out before it's too late. But then, dreams are real weird and abstract. 10 years all of a sudden go by. He comes in with his ex-wife and says, I'm divorcing you and I'm taking everything. And in the dream, 10 years went by and I was not doing well. I was sick. And I was like, he's taking everything. How can I rebuild? And I woke up in a panic and a cold sweat. And that morning, I took the car keys. He said, you're not taking the car. And I screamed at him, call the police. I will tell them everything. I don't care. I'm done. And he saw there was a change. He actually got I saw him kind of have a scared look because he knew he lost me. He called me a couple times as I was on my way to work, screaming, and I screamed back. He said, you better get the car. I'm calling the cops on you for stealing. I said, you come get the car. I'm happy to show the cops everything. I am happy to do it. Come get the car. I will tell you in exactly what spot it's in. You will not treat me this way ever again. He was scared. I think he knew I was done. And needless to say, I went to work. He didn't come get the car. And I don't remember exactly how it went, but one of my family members knew kind of what was going on. Knew the person was bad, but nobody knew the full extent because I wasn't allowed to talk about it. And I think I had a conversation and I just said, I got to get out of here because I think he's going to kill me. something's going to happen. Something bad's going to happen. I mean, bad things have already happened. And from that, I ended up reconnecting with some family. My family, though, they're not as bad as he is, but they're also not much better in not being safe for me. So I ended up staying with them for a few months and got away from him. And I'm grateful, the few times they have stepped up to be my family, not much, doesn't last long. I am grateful, but I just wanted to throw that perspective in there because I know, like I said, Shiloh has gotten so much crap for that happening, but it should have never happened to her. He should have gotten her help. I should have gotten help. You guys who've gone through your bad relationships, you should have gotten help when you weren't allowed. I don't know why it's been so acceptable in society to mistreat women the way people have mistreated us, but I would tell you, if you are a woman, and I think a lot of people following this Onision story were women who've had really bad relationships and were aware of it. If that's you, and I know we know the Onision story, I know there's controversy with Chris Hansen, I would encourage you, what is it, Discovery Plus? It's free for a week. Go watch this. I think it can be really helpful, and I'm really glad. I look back now at everything I've been through with chronic illness, bad family, horrible relationships, and I look back and I was like in the middle of some of that. I took on the internet's biggest bully. I debated him and I won. And I helped be a big voice that made YouTube change their policies to make it so he had less of a reach on his audience. I can look back now with all the scrutiny I went through and I can be proud. I can be proud of what I helped create. I wasn't the only one. Not saying it was all me, but I know my voice really contributed a lot, and I was the one who was shining a big light on something before it was a topic that was just trendy. Do you know what I mean? And I saw what was going on before other people, and I spoke out. Many times the first people to do that, the canaries in the coal mine, they're the ones that get the flames. And that's something I've also had to learn about who I am and kind of how I operate. But it reminds me that everything that I've been through and everything you've gone through, there's a reason for it, There is a reason. And if I could have helped anybody, then I'm happy it all happened. And there's a reason that you guys went through it. What we've gone through is not okay. It's not right. But we're going to become better, stronger people, and we're going to make a better world from it. If nothing else, just changing ourselves can help make changes in the world, raising our voices. And I'm really glad Shiloh did this, and I'm going to take a lot of time tonight to self-reflect on my situation, because I think I'm having these responses as I am because I'm not done healing from what's happened. But you know what? Sometimes, and you guys know this, there are things that can happen in life that can take your whole life to heal and to fix, and that's okay. I'm just so grateful to my roommate. He was the one that really helped educate me about this guy because I couldn't see it for so long. He really helped educate me about all these horrible people in my life, these predatory people, exes, friends. He's the only one that stood by, well, not the only one, but he was one of the only ones in my life that stood by me during my being ill and believed me and helped me get help and helped me get to where I am. I'm so grateful for him. And I also just want to say a big thank you to all you guys. I'm so grateful to you guys. I have the best audience. And I'm getting emotional. Dang it, I have another video where I got emotional about this. But you guys watched what happened to me on such a big public level. And so many people joined a hate train of lies about me. And, there were some criticisms that were valid. I'm not saying there weren't. But most of it was just lies or manipulation. So far manipulated and exaggerated, it turned into lies. And you guys watched it happen with me, and you could have easily just turned into horrible people and mean and hating me, and you stuck by me and you welcomed me back with open arms. And I'm just so grateful to every single one of you for allowing me to come back, and thank you for seeing a good person in me, and thank you for forgiving me if I ever unintentionally did anything that could be hurtful, and thank you for standing by me. I can't thank you guys and appreciate you guys enough. This is just one of those full circle moments where for a long time I felt ashamed of what I did on YouTube, and I felt lots of different things about it, and I can now look back with pride saying I wasn't perfect, but I helped raise my voice to make a difference, and I can be happy with myself. I can be realistic about the imperfections. I can be realistic about weaknesses I need to fix, but I can be proud of myself that I'm helping make some change. And I thank you guys for giving me the opportunity, even if I only did a small amount of change, I thank you guys for giving me the opportunity to do that and welcoming me back. So I'm going to go take time to self-reflect. I think I'm going to take a nice long hot shower and do some taking care of me time, because as we all know, that's super important to do. And I'm just going to do some self-reflection, and more than anything, I'm going to feel really grateful that I'm not with that person anymore, that I'm not with toxic people in my family anymore, and that I'm okay and I'm getting better and I'm in a safe place. And whatever you're going through, I just wish that for all of you. I wish you good health and I wish you safety. And to Shiloh, thank you, girl. You are speaking for so many women who went through this. I know you're not perfect. I'm not saying you are, and I'm not either. You don't have to be perfect, but you are helping people by speaking, and the girls who spoke out helped people by speaking, and I'm just very grateful to everybody. So if you got this far, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Go watch it. By the way, this is not sponsored. I'm not that important. Like, nobody's going to, nobody's paying me for this. I just think if you've been through this sort of thing, I think this is very important to look at. That's all. So, also, guys, I've decided I'm going to put my debate up here soon with Onion. So stay tuned for that, just because it was fun. It's going to take me a little bit because I have to go through it and edit out any offenses, which I'm only assuming between my cursing and him being him, there are many. Okay, guys, take care. Blessings. To the next video. Also, if you want to support this channel, like the video, subscribe, hit notifications, leave a comment. Respect your privacy, but let me know if this has happened to you, if you've had something like this happen, these trauma responses. I feel like a weight has been lifted. I think a lot of us are going to feel a weight has been lifted now that we know this is getting actual mainstream coverage. And for all the controversy, I'm grateful to Chris Hansen that he did this. I'm just happy. Okay, guys, take care. Blessings to the next video. I'm wishing everybody lots of love and giving you guys lots of hugs and kisses. I'm so grateful to every single one of you. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being here. And thank you for allowing me to be on this platform with you and Stutter. Okay, take care, guys. I'm going to go decompress. Bye.